Today, we're diving into the work of René Girard, a thinker who developed a wild, sweeping theory about one of the most basic questions there is. Okay, let's just start with that big one. Why do you want what you want? No, seriously, think about it. That new phone you're dying to get, that career path you're chasing, that vacation spot that's suddenly everywhere. Where does the desire for those things really come from? Well, according to René Girard, the answer is, it's probably not coming from inside you at all. To get what he means, you just have to picture a scene you've probably seen a million times. A little kid is in a playroom surrounded by toys, totally ignoring some plain red truck. But the second another kid comes along and picks up that truck, it suddenly becomes the most desirable object on the planet. A fight starts, and believe it or not, that little playground drama, that's the key to Girard's entire theory. So what that little story shows us is something hidden in plain sight. See, Girard says desire isn't a straight line that goes from you to the thing you want. Nope, it's actually a triangle. And this idea didn't just pop out of thin air. René Girard was a French historian and literary critic. And get this, he first spotted this pattern not in a lab, but just by reading classic novels. An insight he had back in 1961 eventually grew, over 60 years, into this massive, sprawling theory that tries to explain everything from fashion trends to genocide. At the absolute heart of it is this concept, mimetic desire. Now, mimesis is just a fancy Greek word for imitation, and that's the whole idea in a nutshell. Girard's big claim is that we are fundamentally imitative creatures. We don't just randomly decide what we want. We learn what's valuable by looking at other people and copying their desires. So let's actually build this triangle of desire. First, you've got the subject. That's you. Then you've got the object, the thing you want. But here's the game changer, the third point of the triangle, the model. That's the person you're copying. You want the object because they want it. Their desire is like a signpost that says, this is valuable. And for Girard, this little triangle is the engine driving almost all human behavior. Okay. So far, so good. But this is where it all gets messy. Because think about it. What happens when you and your model both want the exact same thing and there's only one of it? Well, that's when this innocent imitation turns into something much darker, conflict. And this is a really crucial point. The whole game changes. That person you admired, your model, they're now your rival. And suddenly, the object, the job, the social status, that toy truck, it almost doesn't even matter anymore. The real prize becomes beating the other person. The rivalry itself is the new object of desire. And this kicks off a super dangerous feedback loop. It's like, I see you want it, which makes me want it more, which in turn makes you want it even more. And on it goes. It's this crazy spiral of escalation, and pretty soon, any logical reason for wanting the thing in the first place is long gone. Okay, so that's what happens between two people. But what happens when you scale this up? What happens when this dynamic infects an entire community, with everyone imitating everyone else's rivalries? You get chaos, pure social meltdown. And this question led Girard to his most shocking and controversial idea of all. I mean, if we're all just wired for this kind of escalating conflict, how did our ancient ancestors not just tear each other apart? He believed they stumbled upon a solution, a really dark, really violent, and, this is key, totally unconscious solution. He called it the scapegoat mechanism. The idea is that when a community's tension reaches a boiling point, something incredible happens. All that free-floating anger, resentment, and blame just spontaneously finds a target. It all gets funneled onto one single victim, the scapegoat, who gets blamed for, well, for everything. And this process, he said, happens in a predictable cycle. Step 1, tensions in the group just keep rising and rising. Step 2, suddenly the mob turns, and everyone starts pointing the finger at one person. Step 3, that person is punished, exiled, or even killed. And then, step 4, poof, the tension is gone. Peace is restored. The community is suddenly unified again, bonded by what they've just done. But hold on. A community can't just look at itself in the mirror and say, hey, we just murdered an innocent person to feel better, right? So how do they justify it? How do they hide the truth from themselves? They tell stories. They create myths. For Girard, a myth is basically the scapegoat story, told from the point of view of the persecutors. In their version of events, the victim wasn't innocent at all. Oh no, they were a monster, a source of all the chaos. And killing them wasn't murder, it was a sacred act that saved everyone. So you see this huge contrast, right? The myth says the victim was guilty, their death brought peace. But the Girardian revelation flips that completely on its head. It says, no, the victim was innocent. Their death just reveals how unjust the community really is. Okay, now we get to what is maybe Girard's most audacious claim. He argued that the story of the crucifixion in the Gospels is a total game changer in human history. Why? Because for the first time, he said, the story is told from the victim's perspective. By insisting that the victim, Christ, is innocent, the story completely exposes the scapegoat mechanism for what it truly is, a violent mob murdering an innocent person. All right, I know what you might be thinking. This is all very interesting. Ancient myths, rituals, early societies. But what does it have to do with us today? Well, as it turns out, Girard's theory might be more relevant now than ever before, especially in our digital age. I mean, just think about social media for a second. What are influencer trends? That's pure mimetic desire. We want what they tell us to want. Viral challenges? That's people imitating other people's actions on a massive scale. And online pylons? The public shaming of a single person? That is the scapegoat mechanism playing out in real time, right on our screens. Yeah, it's like our modern world has become this giant stage. And on that stage, mimetic desire and scapegoating are playing out faster and more visibly than at any other time in human history. Now look, any theory this big, one that tries to explain pretty much all of human behavior, is going to have some problems. It's not perfect. And to be fair, we have to look at some of the major critiques. For starters, a lot of people say it's just too big. It tries to explain everything with one simple pattern. Critics also point out that it kind of ignores other huge factors like poverty or politics. Plus, not all anthropologists are on board with his reading of ancient cultures. And, don't we sometimes just want things for ourselves without copying anyone? And of course, its strong connection to a Christian worldview makes a lot of people skeptical. But here's the thing. Even if you accept all those criticisms, and they are valid points, Girard's theory is still an incredibly powerful lens. It gives you a whole new way to think about envy, about the crazy intensity of rivalry, about why trends catch fire, and about that scary moment when a crowd turns on one person. So in the end, it leaves us with this really unsettling thought. Whether you buy into the whole theory or not, it forces you to ask a tough question about yourself. How many of your own desires, your deepest ambitions, are actually yours? And how many did you just borrow from someone else without even realizing it?